All right, welcome, my friends. It's great to be back. We have not been back on the, or we haven't been on the air for a couple of weeks. We took a little bit of time off for the Christmas break, and then we went to Texas to our biological dentist, Dr. Stuart Nunley in Marble Falls, Texas, and took a week off to do that and get our teeth corrected and our teeth fixed. So super excited to be back doing shows again. I miss it a lot, and I miss hanging out with you guys. And this is going to be a great show with Dr. Stephanie McCarter. We're going to talk about environmental toxins. We're going to talk about her and I were talking before the show about implants, EMF, radiation, environment. And as you guys know, I talk about this a lot, that a lot of times it's the environment around us that is causing our bodies to become sick. So it's not, something going wrong with our bodies, but it's what's going on in our environment. So if we're living in a toxic environment, our bodies are just responding accordingly. So I think one of the best things that we could all do is to fix and clean up and get our environment optimal so that our body can work properly. So we'll be talking a lot about that with Dr. Stephanie McCarter, and we'll introduce her in just a second. Lots of cool stuff happening on Extreme Health Radio. If you guys have not subscribed to us on YouTube or on iTunes yet, make sure to do that so you don't miss any of the shows that we have coming up. On iTunes, we do shows every single day. So if you guys want to join us on there, you'll get a new show into your feed every single day, a past archive show, an upcoming show, lots of cool stuff. So as far as the live shows coming up, today, Dr. Stephanie McCarter, we'll be talking with her in just a second. On Wednesday, we have Dr. Brian Mole. We'll be talking with him about diabetes and metabolic health. So that's going to be a good show. Diabetes is rampant, and there's even a connection too to diabetes, blood sugar levels, insulin levels, and dirty electricity in the walls and EMF. So we'll talk about that today. But on Wednesday, Dr. Brian Mull. So if you guys know of anybody that has diabetes or blood sugar issues, make sure to tune in to that show on Wednesday. Then on Friday, Mark Gober. This is going to be a cool show. He wrote a book called An End to Upside Down Thinking. And so we're going to get into some fun topics like quantum mechanics and spirituality and creating your own reality, and is that all possible? Is it true? And so we'll be talking with him on Friday. So lots of cool stuff coming up on Extreme Health Radio. So make sure to subscribe. And let's see, is there anything else I need to get to today? Oh yeah, I want to let you guys know too, this is episode 646. So if you're listening on the podcast version or anything like that, and you want to grab the show notes to the sponsors or to the Extreme Health Academy or to the Environmental Health Center in Dallas, so you can go to extremehealthradio.com/646. So we're going to be talking with Dr. Stephanie McCarter today about treating sensitivities to chemicals like molds, food pollen, EMF, implants, which is a big thing, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. And she is a board-certified internal medicine. She is board-certified in internal medicine. And she's a member of the American College of Physicians and the Alpha Omega Medical Society. She graduated from Indiana University in 1993, School of Medicine, and Pepperdine University in 1989. And she's been working with Dr. Ray in Texas for many years, working at the Environmental Health Center there in Dallas. So let me bring her microphone up and introduce her. There we go. Turn her audio on, and there we go. How are you doing, Dr. McCarter? How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Justin?
I am doing great. We just got back from your neck of the woods. We were in Marble Falls, Texas.
That's fantastic. Doing holistic dentistry, which is really important.
Yeah, that's a big deal these days, isn't it?
Yes. In fact, what you just said about EMF, one of the things people don't realize is the 2.4 gigahertz on your iPhone is actually known to cause your blood sugar to go up. And they use that in rat studies to make rats diabetic. And Dr. Klinghardt had recently talked about the fact that in the 1960s, he had a professor that they were actually experimenting with that frequency to induce sterility with orphanages. So there is a big problem with this EMF stuff. And that's what Dr. Ray had always spoke about to us, that this was our generation's tobacco and that we need to really pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on my iPhone, I noticed there's like on the wireless thing at our house, we turn that off, most of the time, but there's always an option for 5G and then 2.4G. But what you're talking about with the blood sugar is 2.4G?
Yeah, and I imagine 5G is going to be worse. I think 5G is going to be a big problem.
Uh-huh. Yeah, when we were,
We're already seeing patients that are sensitive, that are having trouble, where the cities have put 5G in. There are already patients coming here and calling us. They're having difficulty.
it's unbelievable. We in our neighborhood, we live in between a school and a church, and what I'm finding and learning as I do research in this is that they're looking for places like that in order to install these 5G
Right.
towers, and so they just put one right next to our neighborhood, and so we're looking to move
Oh
now.
no.
But when we drove to Texas, we live here in Southern California, and when we drove to Texas, just got back a week ago, there's these 5G towers literally everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's these 5G towers.
No.
It's crazy.
And they want to do 20,000 satellites from the space. They want to hit us with that. And the problem that people don't realize is the FCC has not looked into what all these scientists are, talking about that's proven, and that's the mechanism that they're just talking about thermal effects, but there's a proven mechanism that the calcium channels in the cells are like 7 million times more sensitive to EMF than any other part of the cell. And these are very concentrated in the reproductive organs, the brain, the heart. So we are creating a big problem if we don't do something now. That was one of the things that Dr. Ray warned about, and I'm really concerned.
Yeah, I was doing some research and I looked at some of the stuff by Professor Martin Pall, and he was saying the exact same
Yes,
thing about the
yes.
calcium ion channels. And he was saying that the EMF, I guess what it does is it allows those channels to open and then calcium floods to the inside of the cell. Is that what's going on?
Right, and magnesium leaks out, and then you have different enzymes that are stimulated, and one of those creates a lot of free radicals, and the other thing that happens is you get protein kinases that get stimulated, and they get phosphorylated. You have what's called a spreading phenomenon, which is Dr. Ray talked about this. So then the cell becomes more sensitive to many things because there's a whole harmonics phenomena occurring with the cell membrane and coherence vibrations. And so one of the things that he talked about is we deal with chemicals, pesticides, pollutants, molds, all these things in the cell, and then you're going to add this to it. It's like a completely synergistic, increase in sensitivity
Hmm.
that can easily occur, and we are seeing that. So a big thing we see with EMF is heavy metals. We see a lot of people, the more sick they are, the more pesticide exposure, the more heavy metals, the more EMF sensitive they are.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, one of the big things about treating this is to get away from it, which is now going to be very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was reading something also too with mold, because you put that as part of your title on today's show, and I was reading something recently where there's I think a 400 or 500% increase, where they did a study with mold spores,
Yes.
and the mold spores, if you put them inside a Faraday cage, they proliferate
Mm-hmm.
normally, and then if you take them outside of the Faraday cage and put them next to some
Yes.
EMF producing equipment, they replicate like 400 times more. Is that right?
Right. It's a defense mechanism. Everything in nature has a defense mechanism. It's just part of how it's created.
It's
And
crazy.
mycotoxins are a big concern because mycotoxins are what molds put out, to defend themselves. And it's very, very toxic. Mycotoxins are nanoparticles and they've been studied for biological warfare. And
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing we're seeing. A lot of people who are coming here with mold toxicity and high mycotoxin levels. And that's one of the things that we can do here is we can treat people by desensitization with this. One of the things I wanted to talk about, the provocation neutralization that we do is different from skin prick testing or blood tests for allergies. So
Mm-hmm.
what we do is the ground regulation system is part of your connective tissue. So what we discovered through physiologists named Alfred Pissinger and Hartmut Heinie is that this connective tissue is not just holding your cells together, but it's a communication network that's regulating cell biology and metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have this, it's basically made of protein and sugar molecules that and connective tissue cells that then communicate with your blood, your vascular endings, your autonomic and your somatic nerve endings, and hormones and immune cells. So what happens when people are overstimulated is this system gets kind of gel-like. The water structure loses its it loses water structure and becomes not as fluid-like. And it's actually, communication device for your whole body. So people who are sick, they have a lot of inflammation because they're not able to handle chronic stimuli that have been coming in. And EMF makes this worse because it becomes much more electrolabile. It's more sensitive to anything that comes in that field. So with provocation neutralization, we can actually introduce a frequency with an antigen, whether it's a mold, a mycotoxin, a chemical, a food, and it will actually exchange with the cell very rapidly and precisely through this matrix, this GR, we call it a ground regulation system. And that is a fantastic way to help people detox and desensitize because you're not just dealing with the immune system and trying to tone down the IgE levels in the body, that people are having super allergic response, but you're actually helping the body to handle that particular substance at the frequency that the nervous system and the immune system and the vascular system can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually people will start detoxing just doing this therapy. It's been a huge tool. And now we're talking about a lot of implant materials, because we see a lot of people with implants, younger and younger ages, with multiple implants, whether they're dental, silicone, titanium, any kind of metal that's put in the body. You have titanium alloy.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these things we can actually test for. And the interesting thing, Justin, is you can reproduce the symptoms immediately, because you're dealing with the dermis, you're dealing with the level of this, communicating with the nervous system.
Okay.
So people will test a certain material and have these different symptoms, and it'll actually trigger the specific symptom to that material, whatever that substance is doing to their body, and then of course desensitize them. So what's happening, Dr. Ray, one of the last things he wanted to do was write an implant book, because there's over 200 implants now in medicine. And so people will have these implants in for so many years, and the immune system is looking at this like, wait, what is this? And so you create more and more antibodies. So you see more and more autoimmune and medical conditions that aren't even being connected to these implants. Unfortunately, the regular medical field is not being educated on this. And so it's one of the things we can do is we could treat people, and if they have to, maybe desensitize versus take out whatever the implant is.
Mm-hmm.
And another nice thing about this is, because people are getting more sensitive to a lot of things, because the total body load and environmental load is so high now with all the pollution and everything, we can actually help people, like if they're going to have cataract surgery or they're planning a surgery, to test what materials, whether it's dental, metals, what they're more sensitive to and what they're less sensitive to, and then we help them desensitize before surgery. So it's a huge tool that we have here.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I want to get into more of that as the show goes on, but it's interesting because about 2008 or so, I had torn my ACL doing jiu-jitsu. I was training, and my knee just popped, and I think it was like a 90% tear, and I'm so fortunate to have understood this information, because I went to a couple different doctors and they wanted to do an implant, and I asked them, I said, what do you do the implant with? Like how do you attach the ligament, whether it's my own or a cadaver? How do you attach that to the bone? And they said, oh, well, it's a metal device that we put in there, and it just blah, blah, blah. And I'm so glad that I knew that then, because I knew that was going to be a constant burden on my immune system. So I subsequently learned about prolozone, prolotherapy, stem cells, things like that. And so I learned how to treat it in other ways, and my knee is not 100%, but I'm so glad I didn't get surgery. But you're looking at surgeries now with people getting breast implants, people getting implants all over their bodies. It's crazy these days.
Right.
Nuts.
And that's what people don't realize, is that total body load is affecting, once that barrel is full, whether the people, we're dealing with all these things in the environment, and then they have this implant and then another implant, and they typically will have like a lot of infections because their immune system starts to get weaker, but they don't make the association right away. And then they have other things that happen, maybe their blood sugar goes up or their thyroid starts having problems, and it's all interconnected. So that's one of the bigger principles that Dr. Ray taught with the total body load. And that's what is really important about our center also, because our environmental unit is a controlled environment from the ground up. It's porcelain walls and ceilings. We have a special filtration system for depolluting the air. We have materials that don't outgas as far as furniture and furnishings, so that you're in a very clean environment that's 5 times lower levels of petrochemicals and solvents and pollutants and mold. And so what happens is you can put people in this environment and really start to pinpoint what is it that is triggering different symptoms for them, because you get so adapted when you're out in the world and your body's having to keep up. So this is a way to clear all that and then introduce, I think there's no other place in the nation that has this. And so we even have an EMF room that we're testing patients on for EMF frequencies. So we have it shielded with the porcelain walls, so we have lower levels of pollutants and blocking out all the electromagnetics. And then we test people double blindly to show if they have a sensitivity, which is important, because right now we don't have a good way of documenting EMF in people. We don't have a blood level that we can say this is why you have EMF sensitivity, or if you have it, which again, many patients go to the doctor, they go to the ER, they're told they're fine, and all of these signs and symptoms are being ignored because unfortunately doctors aren't being educated.
Yeah, it's so sad. They just don't know, and they're not educated. Do we know how these things? Because in 2008, 5G wasn't even a thing yet. I mean, cell phones, or I guess smartphones, were only like 3, 4, years old. Do we know how 5G interacts with metal, specifically metal implants in your body? I imagine it's got to be not good, right?
Right, it's like a conductor. So you're getting a conductive phenomenon, and the person's actually becoming like an antenna.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with this is, the FCC, I don't know if your viewers are aware, but the current safety standards are based on an old flip phone, which is 900 megahertz, being held by a 220-pound man for about 6 minutes.
Oh my
And so there
gosh.
is no safety test based on think about what people are exposed to. You have multiple devices, you're next to a tower, you're in a computer with a wireless router. None of this accumulative or synergistic effect has been tested, and there's no long-term test. So we are really an experiment right now, and it's really unfortunate. So you're right. I mean, we do see people with implant syndrome and people with high heavy metals, which we test for, have much more EMF sensitivity. And we do use a provocation neutralization technique to help them desensitize to the metals. Sometimes patients are too sensitive to even do chelation. So
Mm-hmm.
we help get their body more stable, and we start with just vitamin C and glutathione IVs, and
Mm-hmm.
patients have to take antigens just to get desensitized to that. So it's a big growing phenomenon, and I'm really concerned. Dr. Deborah Davis did some really great work with 3D MRIs
Mm-hmm.
showing how much radiation goes into a baby. I mean, babies have iPads and they've got diaper sensors and all this wireless stuff that unfortunately, people are not aware, has not been thoroughly tested. And, children and animals don't have any myelin fully developed, so they're not as protected by their nervous system as well.
What is a diaper sensor?
They have these wireless sensors that you can put in the diapers so the people know that their child has to need the diaper change.
Oh my goodness. What in the world? Like, why can't you just figure it out or look? I mean, do we really need all this stuff?
It's becoming all robotic, and that's those iPhones. The iPhones are also under settings. If you go under legal, it says not to wear it on your body, and
Uh-huh.
in settings you can actually change the um, blue light filters, and then you should really put your phone on airplane mode at any time. Like, download your information. You can even download your GPS information in a car and then put it on airplane and use your GPS, because anytime you're in a metal box like a car, plane, or elevator, you're really being affected by this because it's bouncing off all the metal into you.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to mention that we have a really wonderful immune booster that we also make from your own blood here at the center, and it's been very helpful for people with sensitivities in helping them get more stable so that they can detox heavy metals and
Mm.
get to that point. And we offer oxygen therapy, which is based on the von Ardeen protocol. Dr. von Ardeen was a scientist back during World War II. Brilliant man, and he was able to do a lot of experiments, and he found that when there's certain parts of the microcirculation that get very inflamed,
Mm-hmm.
the cells, the switch, the sodium potassium pump doesn't work as well. So what we do is we measure oxygen coming back to the heart, and we have certain levels that if it's high, we know your body's not extracting well. Unfortunately, modern medicine is about you need oxygen if your lips are blue and your arterial's low. But what we found is that if you look at the venous blood level coming back to the heart, if that's high, then your body is inflamed and your microcirculation is not extracting. So we have an oxygen therapy protocol that we do here for that too.
Oh wow, interesting. Sounds like you guys do a lot of things. So I'm curious
Yeah,
about
we do.
with people that have implants. Like let's say in 2008 I had got that ACL surgery and now I have a couple screws in my knee, and I'm kind of walking around with them. I'm listening to this and I'm wondering what to do. I guess one option is to go get another surgery and somehow find a doctor that would replace that with something that's biocompatible. But I don't even know if that's possible. Another option is to work with you guys and maybe see how their body can more easily sort of facilitate the metal that is in their body and just sort of leave it in there. Are those the only
Right.
two
So what we
options?
have is, yeah, most patients come here. We get the MSDS sheet on what is in their body, and find that sometimes the titanium is not so bad. We can desensitize them depending on when we test for allergies with this technique. We can actually test how sensitive you are by how dilute we have to go to finally turn off your symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's very helpful. And then alloys will have molybdenum, cobalt, chromium. They'll have all these different uh, specific ingredients, and sometimes it's just one of those ingredients, like molybdenum, and we can actually desensitize to that, and the patient will then tolerate their implant. But you're right. I mean, the best thing is if you had anything biological, because it is an actual. Sorry about that. There
No
is an
worries.
actual thing that happens um, with having that total load increased. And now,
Uh-huh.
like you said, with EMF and all these antennas, you become an antenna. I
Mm-hmm.
see a lot of patients before we saw so much implants just with high mercury levels from all the silver amalgams.
Mm.
And when the EMF was not so prevalent, people had EMF sensitivity, and as soon as they got the mercury out, they felt much better, and their EMF got much better. So that's actually growing now because of all these implants. And you think about tattoos. Tattoos typically have a lot of metals. So patients come, they have a lot of tattoos. We find really high levels of metal. We start detoxing them for that as well.
No, I'm curious about, I mean, tattoos is an interesting subject. I want to ask you more about that. But with regards to these types of implants, or maybe even tattoos as well, is it something, do you think, that even though you can get their body to sort of more easily tolerate whatever it is that's in their body, it seems to me that if anything foreign is in the body, your body, even if you can tolerate it better, which is probably the best we can do on planet Earth right now, it's still going to see that as a foreign substance and still maybe affect your immune system. Do you think that's correct?
That's for sure correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, yeah, that's a problem that we're seeing. We have to try and get people to stay healthy so they don't get injured so easily. I think when people's reserves are low, it is interesting because like we were talking about, the connective tissue matrix is your communication network. And if your body's getting, the total load is going up, and unfortunately, modern medicine, we aren't looking at that. But we do several tests here to look at, your nutrient levels, your total chemical profile, as well as heavy metals and mold. And when you get that down, your body can handle some of these implants. But most people are walking around today not aware that they're full of all these different chemicals and molds and things. And so it all adds to it. But you're right, it's a very difficult thing because God created us to be smart. Our immune system says, hey, this is not me. This is not who I am.
It's fascinating too when you think about the synergistic relationship between these types of things. Because as you're talking about EMF and chemicals and mold, and then I started thinking about parasites, and I started thinking about other toxicities that happen. Maybe it's even just stress in people's lives. But it's interesting that study that I mentioned where the EMF affected the mold spores, and I wonder, there's probably a connection between EMF as well as mold spores and parasites, and then EMF and chemicals, and it's probably going to have
There's a
big soup.
Physicist from Russia, Dr. Trevor Marshall, was talking about how the EMF affects our own microbiome, and I'm a big fan about the microbiome and how important it is to your health, because it is who we are. We're like 10% human. It's 90%
Yeah.
The bacteria is who we are, and so that is affected as well. And there's a microbiome in your brain. So yeah, he was talking about his studies and how much he's finding that these organisms are affected. And so, the more people have mycotoxins or metal or whatever in their body, we do find the secondary parasite and Lyme and different viral loads that go up because they feed off that. It's part of the whole communication between everything. So, so people who have more toxicity tend to have more secondary infections, and their microbiome is a big problem.
Yeah, we did a show recently with Amy Prohl, who's a PhD, and she's studies under Trevor Marshall from down in Australia, and we talked about the microbiome, and she shared some ideas that just blew me away. I mean, we've done 46 shows, and she was talking about how these sort of bacteria will hijack other viruses, for example, and then the viruses will penetrate into a biofilm, and then they'll go into that biofilm, and then they'll somehow electrically, I guess new research out of the University of San Diego is now showing that these viruses, or I'm not sure if bacteria, I got to re-listen to the show, but they're communicating with other bacteria that live in other biofilms in other parts of the body, using sort of hijacking our electrical system. And I thought, what in the world? We have no idea what's going on inside of our bodies.
Yes,
it's crazy.
So that's another thing. We do some injections where we take fluid like stool and urine, and people have chronic infections. They're having such a difficult time. I see a lot of patients who come here who've been on lots of antibiotics for Lyme disease. We can actually take this fluid, grow it, find the organisms that are, we can even do a whole blood vaccine. I don't like to use the word vaccine. It's basically you're growing the blood, or you're growing the stool, or vaginal, or eye, or sinus, and the pathogens that the immune system is obviously not handling well will overgrow on as we do the cultures, and we can take that and sterilize it, spin it down, and make an immune booster and stimulant for those particular organisms. And it's what we call autogenous injections. So that helps clear some of these infections as well. And that's another tool that we have.
So, Stephanie, can you repeat that again? Because that was a lot, and I want to make sure I understand it. I'm sure people are listening. I know sometimes whenever I listen to podcasts, I'll just kind of zone out for 2 seconds, and then all of a sudden something big is said.
Sure. So we have this. What we do is we can take the urine or the blood or stool. Typically, people have chronic infections, gut infections, and they can't seem to clear, and they've had a lot of antibiotics, which we know can create this huge shift in the microbiome. And we can grow that on cultures. And then what we do is the organisms that say it's strep or Klebsiella will overgrow on the plates, and then we can spin that down, take it, sterilize it, and make an immune booster that we dilute it to what the body can handle, but it helps the immune system see those particular organisms instead of resulting on more antibiotics or whatever we have to do to help clear that infection.
Okay, so what is that end product? Is it something like a serum that the patient takes, or
Yeah,
what is that?
it's an injection with a fluid, right? And so we just dilute it down to sometimes just like we do for when we're allergy testing to see what dilution their body can handle of that particular substance. But it's basically from them, and it's just the organisms that their body is having trouble. It's a great, we call it autogenous vaccine, but I don't like the word vaccine, but it's autogenous. Basically, it's helping your immune system get a resistance against these organisms that it's having a very difficult time eradicating.
That's interesting. So it's almost like a reintroduction of something that your body already recognizes because it created it,
Right,
so that your immune
right,
system is no longer confused about what to do.
right. It just boosts that. It boosts those T cells and B cells so that they see it, and specifically, because most patients that come here and most people who get sick, their T and B cells are pretty low,
Hmm.
and that's where the autogenous lymphocytic factor that we make from blood helps as well. And we also look at all the IgG subsets because Dr. A figured out that even when one subset is off a little, supplementing that helps, and infusions of IgG really help patients gain back their health because it's all about your immune system. And when the gut is so messed up, these are things and tools that we have to boost that.
Hmm. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because when you look at like how human beings are supposed to be existing on the earth, and you think about our immune systems are perfectly designed to be, to keep us healthy for all the years of our life. But you look at the kind of world that we're creating now with, like we've been talking about
Right.
5G and all the chemicals. I mean,
Yes.
it's, I don't know, it's really interesting, but just getting all that stuff out of the way and reconnecting with nature and,
Right.
right? I mean, doesn't that seem like the
Exactly.
best? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Because you get that harmonic response of that natural part of nature. And, everything in nature has electromagnetic communications. It's very interesting and it's a much calmer level. And, Dr. McCullough is writing a book I just heard called EMF. I think it's called EMF to Extinction because he's worried too.
Oh,
Because, yeah,
geez.
everything is everywhere you go, you can't get away from it. And being grounding is a big thing that I teach patients. But, it's going to be harder, Justin, with all this stuff that's going on from space and everything. But grounding barefoot, earthing, I'm a big proponent of that because the earth is this huge amount of electrons that you can tap into. And when you have a lot of inflammation in the body, you have a lot of positive ions in the body. So the natural flow is going to be to get, the negative ions and balance that back out. That's why people feel so well when they go to the ocean. You're just getting all these negative ions. It's wonderful. And that's why people feel so much better.
Hmm. I agree. I agree. We're with Stephanie McCarter, and if you guys have any questions, what we'll do, I think, is after the break, we will ask some of those in the chat room. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Let me bring up her website really quick so you guys can take a look at it. It's really cool, and I wanted to show you this, or show this to you if you guys are watching on the YouTube version. And so here's some of what the Environmental Health Center in Dallas is working with. So people with mold mycotoxins or mold toxicities, dental sensitivities, chemical incidents in the home environment, allergies, fluoride, bacteria, nutritional balances, medical sensitivities, oil spill exposures, pesticide and herbicide sensitivities, food sensitivities, implant syndrome, which is kind of what we've been talking about just right here, irritable bowel syndrome, and food sensitivities. So if you guys have any of these issues going on in your life, you may want to contact her on her website. And it is EHCD, Environmental Health Center Dallas. .com, and we were just recently there. We're close, I think, in Waco recently. So I hope you guys are enjoying the show. This is episode 646. So if you guys want to grab the show notes to anything we're talking about, you can go ahead and do that. And one of the things that I have been a big proponent of recently, actually, I mean, for years, but this particular product is called Stockton Aloe 1. And the benefits of aloe vera are just absolutely incredible. And we recently had a Dr. Donnie Wilson on the show. So let me play what she talked about with regards to aloe vera.
And then I encourage, we can talk more about this. What do I do to help people speed up the healing of leaky gut? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you mentioned aloe before,
Mm-hmm.
and that is one of the herbs that I definitely recommend, using for helping to heal leaky gut. You want to use herbs that are anti-inflammatory and soothing and healing to the intestinal lining. So aloe is a great one.
Yes, aloe is an amazing one. It has over 75 different active compounds. It's got vitamins, minerals, enzymes, amino acids, and this super sneaky substance called ormus that we did a whole show about. But it's really great because it helps lower inflammation in the body. It's antibacterial, it's antifungal, it's antiviral. It's really nature's first superfood. And Stockton Aloe 1, what I like about it is that it comes to you fresh, frozen. So they don't even ship on the weekends because they hand harvest it and then they ship it to you frozen. And it's completely unfiltered, unprocessed, unheated. No, all the enzymes are intact. And what you can do is just thaw out the night before a little bit of fresh aloe vera juice, and you can drink that medicinally 1 to 8 ounces a day. Or if you want to go on a therapeutic dose, you can do like 24 ounces a day. This stuff is amazing, and I highly recommend aloe vera. So check it out. If you guys want to check it out, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a link to it, to our store and the Stockton Aloe 1 product. And also something else that we've been really big fans of lately is this Juve red light therapy. And red light, as you guys know, is one of the most healing and beneficial frequencies of light to help lower inflammation in the body. It's an incredible, incredible thing. Let me bring up our picture of it in our store here. You guys can take a look. And I have a picture of me standing in front of it as well. But this is an amazing tool to help your body to heal. It's basically mitochondrial food because one of the ways to stimulate the mitochondria, frequency, sound, temperature, these are all ways to influence the condition of the mitochondria, which controls genetic expression, is through light. And so it helps in the process of ATP production. It helps to increase the electron chain transport to carry those electrons across the mitochondrial membrane. It's incredible for healing damaged skin, collagen production. It's just a great, great tool. And I use it every single day. You use it for about 10 minutes a day. And the cool thing about this Juve is that it comes in sort of a modular design. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this woman standing in front of her door, and there's a small design there. And then there's bigger ones too, like this one. And you can sort of build your own sort of cage with this thing, like this guy here. I think this guy's a UFC athlete, but a lot of people do it to lower inflammation in the body too, because the red light frequencies penetrate about 10 to 30 centimeters. And it's incredible, incredible thing. Here's a picture of me using ours, actually, if you guys want to check it out on Instagram. I'm standing in front of my device there. Got my little rebounder there, my little sauna. A lot of times I'll do the red light therapy, and then I'll do the rebounder, and then I'll jump in the sauna, have a little spa day with Justin. So I'm a big fan of turning your home into a healing center, if possible, if you guys can. And bringing some of these tools into your home is really a smart thing to do, especially moving into this sort of bizarre 5G world that we're moving into, unfortunately. And so I think it's really important for us to do that. Okay, so we're going to bring Dr. McCarter back on the show. But if you guys have any questions, make sure to ask them in the chat room in all caps. And what we'll do is we'll kind of just bounce around a little bit. Actually, Darren wants to know what the name of this treatment is. So let's do this. Let me bring Stephanie back on, turn her audio on. Oh, and by the way, guys, if you guys want to check out the Juve and or the Stockton Aloe 1, if you're watching on YouTube, there's links down in the description for that, and that goes over to our store, and you can learn more about those devices and all that good stuff too. So let me bring Stephanie back on and ask her. So Stephanie, someone in our chat room wanted to know what was the name of that last treatment that you were talking about?
The autogenous vaccine therapy. I don't like the word vaccine, but it's basically, that's what we call it. But it's not a vaccine like you think of.
Okay.
It's from you. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's
Okay.
cool.
And how long is that administered for, and how long does someone have to do it, and how does that work?
Usually with that, it takes a couple weeks to get the vaccine made because we're growing the fluid. And then we have you come back and skin test to see what dilution your body can handle of that. And then usually patients take that. They take the injection, and you can do sublingual, but injection works better. You do it every 4 days for about 3 months, sometimes 6 months.
And then what if someone is traveling from New York or from California? How do they stay there for that long?
Well, we have some places that patients tolerate. We have some condominiums that a former patient has set up for safe housing. And he
Mm-hmm.
actually has cottages outside the city for people who are really EMF sensitive. You can contact our front desk to get that information, and our patient coordinator, Sue Owen. And then there is a hotel near here that patients are tolerating called Home 2 Suites. So we used to have a whole block of Marriott rooms that we had made eco-friendly,
Oh my
and we
gosh.
used those for years. It was fantastic, and patients stayed there. And what happened, Justin, is Wi-Fi came into the city more and more,
Mm.
and patients could not handle it, so they had to go elsewhere. And it's a big problem.
Gosh, it's a big problem, isn't it? I know this because we just got done traveling, or driving. We have two little twin boys, and we drove. They're 6 months old,
Mm-hmm.
and we drove
Aw.
from. They're so cute, but yeah, we drove from here, Southern California, to Marble Falls, Texas, and I think we took 4 days. So we're staying in hotels and stuff like that.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and I tell you, we had to swap out the lights for red lights. We had to swap out the water filters. We had to bring our EMF devices. I mean. Hi,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I'm
Mm-hmm.
surprised that you actually got Marriott to work with you for as long as they did.
Right. Yeah.
Wow, that's
But
amazing.
then, and I think if they might have worked with us a little bit about, turning off signal, but that wasn't going to happen. So uh, I think, Airbnb is a great way to travel because you can talk to the host and you have people who are on the same page sometimes. And
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to look into that for our city, but, Dallas is a 5G city, so it's getting tougher.
Yeah, I heard Austin and LA and gosh,
Uh-huh.
is it fully rolled out everywhere yet, or is that still working on it?
No, no,
Okay.
they're still working on it.
Still working on it.
So, but
My
my
goodness.
concern is this 20,000 satellites they want us to, it's not just the 5G coming from space, but what's it going to do to our ozone layer? I mean, just everything, all the rocket fuel, all that stuff. It's just concerning.
I know. I wonder what all that is going to do to, what do they call that? The Schumann resonance? Is that what sort of,
Right, could shift it. You're right. That's
yeah.
very concerning.
Yeah, because that is
So
sort
we
of
need to get a hold of our congressmen. They have no idea what's going on
oh
as far
gosh.
as safety, because everything's based on the FCC, and that's not being taken seriously. That this, I mean, you think about it. They say, okay, this is a thermal effect, so it's not affecting you thermally. Your brain's
Right.
not even wired to tell you if it's heating up. And
Right.
we've had so many studies. The National Toxicology Program did that study a couple years ago that showed definite, cancer,
Mm.
schwannomas, all these things, gliomas, the heart. And then in Italy, they just repeated the same type of study. So I mean, people just need to become aware and educate family and friends and talk to congressmen because that's the way we have to start changing this.
Hmm.
But
It's
everybody
interesting.
wants signal.
I know, right? Everyone wants to download Netflix, right? We had so what was going on in our neighborhood was, I think it was Verizon. I'm not sure, AT&T. I forget which company, but they basically put a 5G tower right next to our neighborhood. And what happened was they had like a town hall meeting with all their scientists to educate the public on why this is okay, and all these concerned citizens showed
Mm,
up. But instead of having a speaker speak from the stage and have people ask questions in an open forum format,
mm-hmm.
they had all these little booths around to sort of separate everyone's conversations so that people could be
Ah,
educated,
very clever. Yeah,
without real answers and real
yeah.
conversations happening and this kind of stuff. And I think what they did is, I think they paid the church, I think it was, I heard $30,000 to $40,000 a month for access
Hmm.
to that space. And to Verizon or whatever company that was, that's nothing. But to a church, that's a lot
Right.
of money, right?
It's a big deal. They do that quite often.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Nuts, nuts, nuts. Okay, so we have a question here in the
I've
chat.
actually had patients, I was going to say, I have
Oh,
had
yeah.
patients who I know 5G is in Indianapolis, and they were tolerating their computers and they were doing a lot of treatments and um, just had all of it, fiber optics put in their neighborhood. And I'm pretty sure they're 5G on those and they're having a very difficult time.
Jeez, my God, the more you learn about this stuff, I was listening to someone recently. I think it might have been, I think it was Dr. Jack Cruz, or it might have been Professor Martin Paul, but they were saying one of the things that a lot of people aren't discussing on with 5G is that apparently, you probably know about this, it's jumping on to the already existing dirty electricity that lives in our walls. And so it's sort of electrifying our homes even more. I'm just
That's
like,
what
oh,
happened to this patient.
jeez.
That's exactly what happened. She had an EMF biologist come out and he said it was jumping from her neighbor's electrical main breaker, main box, and it was hitting it was flowing through their house.
Gosh.
I
Man.
know.
Ay, ay,
So,
ay. We have a question here in the chat room I thought was pretty good. It was about dental implants. Let me see if I can find it again.
mhm.
Kristen wants to know, What materials do you recommend for tooth implants? This is kind of a loaded question because it depends on many things, right, Doc?
Correct. Well, typically we don't like acrylics. People, when we do the tox profiles, people are so full of chemicals already,
Mm-hmm.
and your teeth are a switchboard of your gut. So we really like to promote porcelain. We have different porcelains you can test. We promote for some people who aren't sensitive to gold, but we don't like acrylics or resins. And when it comes to bridges and things like that, we can test polyethylene and different types of materials as well, and then we can see how sensitive you are to those.
So, a biological dentist like our doctor, Dr. Stuart Nunley out there in Marble Falls, Texas, he will do like he'll test your blood, and I'm sure you guys do this as well. Like, so someone will have their blood tested and find out what chemicals or chemicals in the implants someone's.
Yeah.
So that's a good idea to do, right?
Well, the Clifford test, we usually find that our test is more accurate. And
Mm,
the Clifford test probably works for a lot of people, but it's not, it's like a blood test, like I said, it's not really looking at beyond the IgE, IgG, those type of part of the immune system. So
interesting.
when you do this provocation testing, you're going, like I said, to the dermis. So you're affecting dendritic cells and you're seeing exactly T cell, other parts of the immune system, immune complex, cell mediated. So
Hmm.
you're getting a total picture. And I find it to be much more accurate and helpful.
Interesting. So if someone has a biological dentist that they go to, say in Seattle or anywhere, can they work with you guys on sending a test to you? And is there a go-between there that could be possible?
Usually what patients do is they come up with the materials that the dentist wants to use, and we have several of those already,
Uh-huh.
and then we test it, or they can bring a sample, yeah, and we can make an antigen to see if it'll
Interesting.
work.
So
We
your
get a lot of
test,
people who the Clifford test that it was okay, and then they're having trouble, and we find it's the material.
interesting. So the Clifford test is sort of the standard for natural holistic dentists then.
Yeah, and it's just like everything else. 80% of the time, functional medicine works, supplements work, people can detox, but then there are people whose system is so, like I was talking about before, the connective tissue matrix is so inflamed and there's so much going on in their total load that they can't tolerate supplements. So they actually get worse. And we find they're sensitive because most of these things are food based. So
Hmm.
we start with square one with the foods and we start getting desensitized to the foods and the basic molds because one of the things is mold is everywhere. So when a person gets sensitized to mold, it's very difficult to maintain homeostasis. So by having the shots for that, you actually are going to be able to tolerate a lot more in your environment. And natural gas, I wanted to mention, is another big factor when people get overloaded or sensitized. Is the natural gas becomes a factor, and we can desensitize to that and see how sensitive people are because that's a typical, most people use that for heat.
Hmm. So if someone's going to desensitize for, let's say, an implant or mold or natural gas, like you just said, is this kind of a one-time in their life process, or is this something they might have to sort of desensitize to maybe once every 5 years or something like that?
Yeah, some patients do fine for like 6 months to a year. They get on the autogenous lymphocytic factors, immune booster. They clean up their environment. They
Uh-huh.
learn which foods are really their big triggers, take them out, and then the shots work fast to help desensitize and get foods back much faster than an allergy shot because again, you're working with the nervous system. And so
Okay.
typically they stay on shots 6 months to a year, and then some patients are able to wean off, and then other patients they come back and retest. Everybody's different. That's one of the cool things about this place is that we treat each person uniquely because one person may be not ill from one thing, but another thing makes another person ill. So we find it's a
Hmm.
very, individual thing, and we do that multidisciplinary approach to like what is their home environment, what is their nutrient status, what is their chemical status, sensitivities, and we tailor make each treatment according to that person.
You know what's really cool about the work that you do and the work that a lot of like natural doctors are doing now in individualizing treatments for specific people and specific conditions is that the more sort of toxic our environment gets with 5G and everything else that's coming in, the more toxic that is, the sicker people become. And the problem
Yes.
with conventional medical doctors is that there's sort of a one size fits all standard of care. And
Right.
as the environment gets more complex, more people are going to get sick and less people are going to be able to respond to something like a standard of care type deal. So I love the work that you guys are doing there.
Oh yeah, medication sensitivity is a big factor.
Hmm.
I just want to mention for the listeners, if you are having insomnia, if you're having trouble concentrating, you're getting dizzy, you're getting a lot of headaches, or you're having heart palpitations, think about electromagnetics because most people are not unaware of this, and doctors are definitely not aware of this. The ADD epidemic, I think, is a big part of this because schools are one of the most toxic places. They have towers in the middle of school grounds. You got fluorescent lights. You got 30 computers in a room. So the power density of all those tablets goes dramatically higher. And you think about a school, classroom above that room or next to that room. So a lot of kids are being, put on all these medications. And like Dr. Ray said, medications are not going to hold. It's not going to continue to be able to handle turning off these symptoms because the cell is going to be too unstable.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, with all that you said, but the chemicals and the carpets and the walls and the paint of the schools themselves.
Exactly.
Like Dr. Senef was saying, she was on her show recently, Stephanie Senef, and she was saying that, schools are like a breeding ground for sickness because, you have the school nurse there ready to give some sort of vaccine. And then you have glyphosates being sprayed on most school grounds where the kids are playing on the grass. Right. And then you have all that stuff that you just mentioned when kids go back inside the classroom. And that's like
we are seeing a lot of teachers right now who are getting sick.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers have been teaching for years because I think what's happening is that with the Wi-Fi and the electromagnetics, it's impairing the person's ability to detox. And so like you said, you've got this total load of chemicals and all these other things going on. So then that adds to it, and they're all having more and more problems. And same thing with people who fly, like stewardesses and pilots. We're seeing a lot more people with this syndrome. And I think it's also because of the Wi-Fi in the plane. You're in a metal box, and so you can't detox normally. And then you've got the same thing. You've got organophosphates in the jet fuel, lead. You've got pesticides. Everything's being sprayed for bed bugs. There's this whole thing with that total load as well.
Oh my, yeah. It's so crazy how toxic our world is getting. So we talked a lot so far today about all the things that are sort of going wrong in the direction that our environment's going and how environment impacts our health. But I'm curious, I don't want to leave our listeners with this sort of doom and gloom, woe is me kind of, but the work that you guys are doing is really fascinating. I want to give people some ideas that they can take home with them. Like you were mentioning before the show, you're doing coffee enemas and ways that we can sort of mitigate all this stuff. But before we get into all that, I'm curious with regards to when people come and see you and your experience working where you are there, can you share, or are you at liberty to share some of the more, I guess, wild, crazy turnarounds you've seen with someone being sensitive to health? Like, some dramatic patients that you've had over the years make tremendous turnarounds?
Oh, for sure. We've had, recently we had an immunologist who ran a company, and he had open heart surgery, and he was on 9 different drugs for medications for pain, and had not gotten better, and that they were not sure why. It was several months, into this, and he couldn't even touch his chest. And we just skin tested him for the materials that are in the grafts and neutralized it, and he was instantly pain-free. He was so amazed and happy, and it was so rewarding. We see countless people coming in with a lot of neurological problems after doing oxygen therapy and getting on mold shots. Their brain fog lifts and they gain weight and they feel better. It's really fascinating. I remember there was a case when I first came. Dr. Ray had a patient who worked for Hershey's Chocolate. He was in a wheelchair. He had tons of pain and was on multiple drugs for pain medications. And guess what he was allergic to?
Jeez.
Chocolate.
Wow.
So neutralizing him for chocolate. And same thing with people with seizures. We find certain molds or certain implants. We neutralize that, and their seizures get better and less frequent. I mean, it's amazing. The body does try to heal itself, and we just giving those tools really helps them and helps their body re-achieve homeostasis. And it's dramatic, like I said, because you're working with the nervous system, immune, and the vascular all at once. Mm-hmm. And the environment is probably the biggest part of it, though, Justin. And that's what, like you're saying, it's a difficult situation with what's going on out there. So we teach people how to adapt your work environment, your home environment, to as clean as possible, because that is critical. And it's probably 70% of it. I mean, if you can make your bedroom a sanctuary and you keep your air in your house as clean as possible. I have a house like that. I built it myself. Mm-hmm. And when my kids come home from college, they sleep for 3 days.
You know what? I was going to ask you
withdrawal,
about that.
And their body's rebuilding itself. It's fantastic. And they say, Mom, never get rid of this house. This is a fantastic place to heal.
That's so great. Yeah, I read that in your bio about how you created an EMF-friendly home. And we recently had Brian Hoyer, who's an EMF specialist, and he came out to our home and did a bunch of testing. And so now we're having to figure out ourselves with 6-month-old twins and the gut-brain barrier in their brain. We got to figure out what's going on with this 5G tower. So tell people a little bit about like what you did in your home to sort of make it a healing or a safer place to live.
Okay, so I learned everything from Dr. Ray. He also has a book on safe building. And before I forget, he did write 2 books that are just now out on electromagnetics. They're smaller books. He had, several volumes he did on reversibility of chronic disease and hypersensitivity, which is like 5 volumes because he's so amazing. He wanted people to know how to treat this. But the 2 new ones that are out on Amazon is EMF effects from power and electrosmog, and then air pollution and electromagnetic phenomena as incitants. So look for those on Amazon. But anyway, he taught me how to build my house, and I used his book and several other building biology experts. So all my materials in my house are completely chemical free, and I have all shielded metal conduit for my wiring. I have everything grounded. I have a magnesium, basically oxide insulation that doesn't grow mold and won't allow any kind of bugs to come in. And then I did a rain screen wall. I worked with a doctor named Tang, and Tang is a expert from University of Alberta. And what you do is you create a space so that you have no evaporation, or you have lots of evaporation and moisture, so no mold can get in your house. It's interesting because I did one part of the house with stucco, and I just abandoned that idea, but I still had the metal lath, and I kept that up, and I can tell there's less EMF coming into that part of the house as opposed to the front part of the house. And I didn't build an EMF metal roof, but there's some controversy about that. I'm going to be curious to see what more of these EMF experts say as far as protecting ourselves from 5G, because I know the wire mesh will protect in the walls, but I know that there's been a lot of talk about when you have metal roofs. There's a lady, Karen Myelson, who wrote a book about energy healing. She was very sick in her house. Her husband had a metal roof and several things. And she said it holds the geopathic stress in the home, which is not a good thing.
Right,
so,
right.
How are we going to shield houses from all this? I'm not quite sure. I ended up putting a Dairyland isolator on my house because I built my house over a geopathic stress field, not knowing.
Oh, no.
And I was a patient at the time, but I had to figure out what to do. So what it does is it separates your primary and secondary neutral. So you have very low amounts of electromagnetic coming into the house. You have nobody else's neutral coming in, and it's very, very quiet and wonderful. And I was able to do that because I built my house out in the country. So
yeah, that's
a doctor. His name is Dr. Don Hillman. He was at the University of Michigan State, and he has a video that he'd made and showed how the cows were sensitive to this ground current, and just changing he was consulted because they were lowering their amount of milk production, and so he was looking into electromagnetic fields, and sure enough, he has a tracing that shows the cows picking up their feed as that current's coming through, and they put an isolator on and separated those neutrals and then took care of that problem.
Wow. Is that Sam Milham you mentioned?
No, this is Don Hillman.
Okay.
He's retired now, but he was at the University of Michigan State, I believe, and he spoke at one of Dr. Ray's EMF conferences, because Dr. Ray's been doing this for I don't know how many years. 1991, he wrote a paper on EMF, double-blind study he did. So
my goodness,
he was ahead of his time.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, everything we have to do to fix our house. Are you familiar with a substance called Magnacrete? Is that part of?
I've heard about that. Well, my installation is called Aircrete.
Okay.
So it's very I think it's similar. It's a magnesium oxide.
Yeah.
And,
apparently that's what they built.
It's supposed to block EMF too.
Yeah, allegedly that's part of what they built the Great Wall of China, and it doesn't mold, and that's kind of the same stuff you're using, right? It doesn't mold.
Yeah, Aircrete, AIRKRETE.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. My goodness. So how did you find the resources for all of these things that went into the building of your home? How do you find all that?
Oh, a lot of research. John Bauer wrote a good book, John Bauer's BOWER, Healthy House Building. Paula Baker-Laporte and Erica Elliott wrote one, Prescriptions for a Healthy House, and Dr. Ray's book, Safe Building. And I just, one of the things I would recommend to patients and people is to test the materials, put them in a jar, close it up, make sure you sniff it, make sure it's okay for you. Because there's so many, quote, green products out there that are not really green. That like I said, sometimes for some person it's not they're sensitive to it, and another person may not be. And green products, you have to be careful what's all in it. So yeah, I would recommend always test your products and test them together. When you have different materials, test them together.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of the drywall and a lot of the materials that are in standard building, materials are actually designed to mold. I mean, they carry mold spores, right, and they get wet and they get damp, and that's why you use what you use, right? The magnesium.
Right. And then what happens, especially in apartment buildings and condos, is they just paint over it. They paint over that drywall, and then you've got your Stachybotrys sitting in there.
Jeez, my goodness. So
So I
amazing.
think that's another problem we have is there's a lot of cheap, fast building going on with housing because we're seeing a lot of people with mold toxicity who have been in apartments and condos. And then we've got all the, rains and all the wet weather that we've been having.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So I'm just going to look through here some more of our questions here in the chat room. Callie Johnson wants to know, do you know if 5G is coming everywhere or just the major big cities?
Right now, I've heard just the big cities.
Uh-huh.
So please educate your congressman. I did hear a rumor that the rural areas were going to have lots more towers.
Wow.
So yeah, Dr. Abe was saying he hoped it would all just kind of implode before it got worse, before they got more of it out there. Because, like I said, most people are just unaware and uneducated, as well as physicians.
What are some things that you would recommend for people to do besides fixing their environment? And I think personally that fixing your environment is the number one thing you can do for your health before you buy a supplement. I mean, if your environment is screwing you up, you got to fix that. But
right.
In terms of like lifestyle practices like sweating, rebounding, jogging, going out getting sun, coffee enemas, what are some of your things that you like to do or recommend to your patients?
Well, we always recommend sauna. We also recommend lymph drainage because the lymph is what, takes the poisons out of your body and it doesn't have a pump like the heart. So lymph massages are very important. We also recommend the oxygen therapy, I think is really important. Your supplements, your bedroom is your most important room to keep, clear and get low EMF and completely, because that's when your body detoxes and clears itself is in your bedroom. And then I'm a big proponent of the gut biome. So I do recommend lots of probiotics and having someone work with someone on their colon health. And those are the biggies. I mean, another big thing is your mind, your subconscious, your ability to kind of detox your, fight or flight, any things that are bothering you, yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, working on your subconscious, any traumas. I'm a big proponent of Annie Hopper's program, DNRS, because it's all tied together, body, mind, and spirit. And having a faith base is something that you can vent to and find relaxation, because what happens to a lot of people after they've been exposed to something and it's been toxic is it's like a post-traumatic stress loop in their brain. So as they heal, they smell something or they feel something, and boom, the first thing they feel like, oh, I'm reacting, and I've got to, and a lot of times it could be just the limbic loop in their brain that's continually causing that reaction, because our brain's very powerful. So that's another thing I recommend for people as well, and getting out in nature and grounding. Now, if you go out and exercise and you get really tired, then you need to detox some more, whether it's sauna or whatever. I would never be a big proponent of, forcing it, but you could do a lot of stretching. Anything that stretches your connective tissue is going to balance out your autonomic nervous system and help you detox, even if it's just a little bit, and you start slow. And a lot of people will do too much sauna or do too much at once. And I tell people, just go real slow, 5 or 10 minutes, a couple of days, wait, see how you feel, those types of things.
I like to ask our guests when they come on, I'm curious, like in your own personal life, like what kinds of things do you do, like on a, say, a weekly or monthly basis? Do you do like weekly coffee enemas, or what kinds of things do you do on a weekly basis, do you think?
I do the sauna, I do the lymph massage. I have an ionic foot bath that I do once every couple of weeks with the foot, ion cleansing of the heavy metals. I do IVs maybe once a month if I'm, feeling like I need them. I do my supplements. I'm definitely out in nature every weekend, connecting with nature and exercise out in the nature. I'm a big proponent of getting the red light, getting out in the sun. And those are my big ones that I like. Yoga, I love yoga. And yeah, those are the biggies. I like to travel, so I think it's good sometimes to get away and just, get away from everything.
I just listened to a podcast recently where they were talking about some of the sort of anomalies of, I guess, longevity. And they were talking about people like, oh gosh, who was it? It was Hugh Hefner, Warren Buffett, and I think some of these other sort of big time guys like that. And they were talking about their lifestyles. And I think Warren Buffett he would drink 3 Coca-Colas a day. And he would stop at McDonald's to get he would get, the omelet or whatever it is at McDonald's every day. And and they were talking about, why do you think these guys are still alive and still doing what they are doing? And the answer they came up with was they just love what they do. They feel really connected to what they do. And I mean,
Right.
that got to play a big role, right?
Yeah, I think that you have natural endorphins. If you're feeling happy and you are passionate about what you're doing, that's every symptom, I think, can be traced back to some kind of emotional restriction, and your detox, I think, can be affected. Just like a toxin, biology belief, Bruce Lipton wrote about that. You take the DNA out of a cell, and the receptors can dictate what genes are turned off and on. And I think your detox can be affected by just your thoughts. But I do think these older people did not grow up in this world that our young people are growing up in today, where you have so much glyphosate in the food. They grew up on a really good foundation of food that didn't have any of these chemicals, and the food is the medicine. Hippocrates talked about it. And I have a little lady's 91, a patient, and she said, I'm the last generation that grew up on food that wasn't fake and full of chemicals. And I'm like, you're right. And so they had that
Wow.
extra ability to have that good foundation. I don't know if they probably didn't have Coca-Cola when they were young. They didn't have that yet.
Right.
But you're right. There's a big part of this is about being happy, and your vibration of your whole body is affected by that as well.
So in closing, I'm curious, like, if someone's listening to this, who would be a good candidate? Like, do you guys see people that are just relatively healthy, and they just want to improve their health? Like, if I came to see you, would you guys see me? Or is it a type of thing where you see people with specific conditions and they've tried everywhere else and nothing else is working?
We get a lot of people who have been everywhere else and nothing is working. And like I said,
Okay.
because they're so sensitive, they're too sensitive to take supplements. They've got so much of a total load of, heavy metals or whatever, mold. So they need to detox the mold and the mycotoxins. But I will say to most people who have had mold in their home or have a problem, that this is a good place to get, because even when you're not as sick from it, you detox really fast and you heal faster when you take the mold shots, the mycotoxin shots. And I do see a lot of people who are pretty healthy who just want to, find out what their heavy metal is, and they want to make sure they're chelating with the right agent and they're not sensitive to it. And if they are, they take an antigen for it. So we do see people who are fairly healthy as well, who just want to really, make sure that their oxygen level is good. And we do the venous level oxygen, and we check, the tox core profile, because people are funny. I mean, there's people that are walking around that think they're pretty healthy and they're just loaded with VOCs, organophosphates. And I think that happens too, is a lot of times you can function pretty long for a while and your body's filling up, but you don't realize it. So to be proactive and find out beforehand would be even better, because when people come now, they're so sick, it's harder,
Yeah. I think the average American over the age of 30 is on between 1 and 3 medications, I think. And do you guys work with people to, as I guess sort of the natural side? Because, people are on medication. I always recommend they find a natural doctor and they find their medical doctor and they work together as a team and where everyone knows what everyone else is doing. Do you work with people in that regard to get off of or lower their medications?
Oh yeah, they typically will. A lot of people will get off their medications after they do the treatment program.
Wow.
And we just do a wean, they start not needing it. We also can, skin test neurotransmitters. So that is a big factor helping people get off antidepressants. But usually antidepressants is because their neurotransmitters are out of whack because of whatever toxicity they have. And mold is a big factor, and pesticides. And so, we do that, and we work with people to make sure that they're antibiotic. If they have to take an antibiotic, so many people are sensitive to the penicillins and cephalosporins because they're mold. And so we help desensitize or find the right, medication that they need for that as well. And a lot of people that we have are sensitive to the herbs because they're like a terpene. So molecularly, they look a lot like a pesticide.
Interesting.
So people who get really chemically sick typically don't tolerate herbs, and they'll be on all these herbs and they're not feeling good. So, we have to teach them about that as well.
Interesting. And when people come in and see you, I'm sure they get a full download of information and education to take back to their home to start working on their environment there, right?
Right.
That's so cool. And so with people that come and see you, what kinds of things are you working on in your center there in Dallas? Are you expanding, or any new projects happening that we should tell people about?
Well, Dr. Seymour is just taking over for Dr. Ray, so we're sort of kind of in still transition mode. And Dr. Seymour has been training with him the last few years. I've been around Dr. Ray for about 18 years, off and on, first as a patient and then learning. And she's a functional medicine doctor, is board certified family practice. And we do want to start doing some more research, especially with the implant connection and EMF and metals. And so we're planning to do a lot of that research. And like I said, we have the EMF testing room, so we can start seeing, we want to get more frequencies that we can test in that room, and probably eventually, have housing for our patients and something that they can stay longer.
Gosh, I bet you have a lot of people coming from around the world, right?
All over the world, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that is amazing, amazing, amazing. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much, Dr. McCarter, for being on the show. And yeah, it was so much fun, and I'm glad you're doing the work you're doing. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, awesome. I'll be in touch via email. I'll send you the link to the video and to the audio when it comes out. And I just want to really thank you for the work you're doing. It's really an awesome resource for people.
And thank you for doing what you're doing, educating people.
Thank you so much. All right, Doc, I will be in touch very, very soon.
Alrighty, bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye. Well, there you go. That was an interesting show, huh? With Dr. Stephanie McCarter. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to go back and look into some of those books that she mentioned because I'm interested in a lot of that building biology kind of stuff because it's so important. Let me take these out real quick. But I just think it's so important for all of us to shore up and to fix our home environment. I mean, if a fish is sick, you don't look at the immune system of the fish, you look at the water it's living in, right? Same way with us. I mean, if we're getting sick, it's not because necessarily we're doing things or we're eating bad food. It's the environment we're living in is incredibly damaging. And so, like, we just got back from this trip, and I tell you, like, going into different hotels, and I mean, one of the hotels we stayed in, it was like we kind of, when Kate and I travel, we're very like off the cuff. We don't make plans and we don't find a hotel, and it's probably good or bad, but good and bad. But so we're driving around and we just we're looking around for hotels at the last minute. Our kids are crying in the back, and we're just, okay, we got to find something. And so we did, and we stayed in the hotel, and right outside our room, there was all these electrical boxes, and the AC units were right on the other side of the wall. And I mean, it's amazing to me that, like Wayne Blakely says, he's going to be on our show soon, and he's with Living Streams Probiotics, but he says, he's just shocked that people are still alive. Like, how are people alive living in today's world with the amount of toxicities? Like, I shared with Stephanie on the show, what's his name? Hugh Hefner and Warren Buffett, and there's a Charlie Munger, was it another big time investor guy? But these people are living a long time, and how are they able to live for so long doing what they do, eating the kind of crap that they eat, and they don't protect themselves at all? And I think she brought up a really good point, which was, the majority of their life, their formative years, and when their bodies were forming and things, they weren't exposed to the amount of chemicals we're exposed to now. And so I think that's a big deal. And so I think personally, this is only going to get worse. I don't know what's going to happen with this 5G thing, but if there's one threat to our health, in my opinion, that's the major threat to our overall health, it's not the glyphosates, it's not the food, it's not the chemicals, it's this electromagnetic field radiation that's coming at us from all angles. And I think this is going to be a real issue for people moving into the next 100 years, because I don't see anything that's showing me, at least from the upper echelon of the companies like Verizon or AT&T, I don't see a lot of consciousness in those companies. I don't see the presidents of those companies that are really looking out for human health. I don't see that. All I see is pure greed and pure profit and pure motivation to continue to earn more money for their revenue holders. And there's a story just came out just recently with Apple, who they had to give their first fiscal financial warning to their investors because they didn't hit the financial markers that they told their investors they would with regards to profit. And so this is a thing that's going to have to happen. I think, like most people talk about, you vote with your dollar, right? Money is the ultimate. It's not even really money, actually, if you think about it. If you really start doing some research on these fake pieces of paper we pass around and call them dollar bills, these things aren't money. But for lack of a better word, money is going to be what causes these companies to change their action. That's why you see companies like Walmart and companies like McDonald's, now they're putting organic stuff into their thing, because if the whole world just went organic and went plant-based or went vegan or whatever, I can guarantee you that McDonald's and Walmart would figure out a way to serve them, right? It's just part of their business plan. They don't care what they're giving you. They just care about making money, right? And that's part of the unconsciousness that's happening. But at least we can sort of hijack that level of unconsciousness to create a demand for things. And I think the more we start talking about this kind of stuff, the more we educate, the more we share, and the more we spend our dollars wisely, the better off we're all going to be, because where there's more demand, the companies are going to step in to fill that demand. So if a company like Walmart or Verizon or McDonald's or these huge big Apple, if these companies don't respond to what the public wants, some other company, it's like a power vacuum. When a government gets taken over, a country gets taken over and the government gets destroyed, there's a power vacuum, right? There's a new dictator or a new president. There's people vying to get into power for a situation like that. In the same way, there are going to be companies that do step in and fill those voids. So the key is educating more, living a cleaner lifestyle, and voting with your dollars. And so I thought that was a really interesting show. And I think that, a lot of people just talk about the food that we eat, and food is very important. There's no doubt about it. Food is super important, but our environment is way more important, in my opinion, than the food that we're eating. And environment means our internal environment as well as our external environment. Because people talk about like, oh, what's the house that we're working in, or the office building that we're working in, or the house that we're living in, or the car that we're driving in. That's all environment, but there's also the internal environment too. And that is, in my opinion, even more important than the external environment. So you have to get your internal environment to a degree that's going to facilitate your body's subconscious desire to heal. And so if your subconscious is telling you it's sick and you're playing the victim role, then you need to fix that part of your body so that you can have the internal motivation and the internal drive to take care of yourself, and then to start fixing your external environment. Because your external environment is simply just a reflection of what's going on internally. So if you have a really messy home, if you have a really messy car, if you have all these stressful, dramatic things happening in your life that are causing stress, that's merely a mirror of what's going on internally. And so we can a lot of times use the external environment as a diagnostic tool about what's going on inside. So like if you go to someone's house and you go in their house and they've got boxes piled up, they've got piles of paper, they've got bills that are unpaid, they've got dirty carpets on the floor, just all this dirt and grime everywhere. It's complete shambles. Like, that show The Hoarders. If you go to someone's house like that, you can pretty much guarantee that they're probably not going to be very successful people in life, right? They're sort of sitting at home all day, hoarding stuff and not really working on themselves to be able to let go of things, right? So most times you won't find someone who's very successful or very healthy. You won't go to their home and they just live in a pigsty, right? So if your life is in shambles, if your life is falling apart, if there's a lot of stress in your life or drama in your life, or there's a lot of clutter in your home, these are all things that are showing you what's going on internally. And if we're aware enough and we can look and be consciously aware, we can see that these things are representing and reflecting what's going on internally. So fixing your environment is super, super important, internally and externally, because like I said, your environment isn't just external, it's internal first. Work on that first, and then change your subconscious mind so that it facilitates healing. And when you tell yourself things that I am getting healthier, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting more healthy, these types of things, when you fix your subconscious mind, then your mind actually believes those things, and you're able to have a conversation internally, a dialogue, with the deepest, most, deepest part of yourself that is really running the show. That's the autopilot of what's going on. And so we have to have a motivation to fix our external environment, and that's the motivation, is fixing your internal environment first. And so yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. If you guys are interested, you can look up a building biologist in your area and find out someone like Brian Hoyer, who came to our home and tested the dirty electricity in the walls. We've got videos on all this stuff, and I'm working on getting those videos off our iPhone onto my computer, which is turning out to be a pretty incredible challenge to do that. But we're doing it, and we're going to get those on YouTube pretty soon. And if you guys haven't checked out our visit to our biological dentist, it was really cool. We went to Dr. Stuart Nunley in Marble Falls, Texas, and he's a great, great guy, the best in there. This is how important biological dentistry is to Kate and I. We live in Southern California, and we drove with 6-month-old twins 4 days, 3 nights to Marble Falls, Texas. This is how important biological dentistry is, and finding someone that you trust, because we didn't want to put our kids into an airplane and expose them to all the other chemicals that are going to be happening inside a plane, and their EMF and all that stuff. We didn't want to. We realized that cars have EMF too, but it's much less than what an airplane would be. So our only option was either keep the kids home, and Kate and I go to Texas, and in that case we couldn't breastfeed them and give them and nurse them and love them, or we fly, or we drive. So we drove, and we spent some time with Dr. Nunley. If you follow us on Instagram, you saw most of those photos. But if you're on YouTube here, go over to our channel and you can check out the a 30-minute video that we did with Dr. Nunley, highlighting the different aspects of his dental practice there in Marble Falls, Texas. So, if you live in New York, you can fly in and go see Dr. Nunley. If you live in Florida, if you live in Oregon, you guys can go see someone like that. Very, very important. But let me jump into this chat and see what you guys are chit-chatting about. It's good to be back. I tell you, man, I missed you guys. We took a couple weeks off during the Christmas break, and then we took another week or two off during this break to go to Marble Falls, Texas, and now we're back. So I'm super happy, super pumped to be back. And Angie says here in the chat room, the gym at our town's local middle school was torn down after the ceiling was falling apart, leaking for years. The asbestos was a major problem. Have to use better materials in schools. Yeah, man. When you start looking at schools and what the toxicities exist in the school, so you have, you just walk into any standard classroom, whether it's a high school, college, or an elementary school, you have chemicals in the carpets, right? You have all these chemicals in the carpets, chemicals on the walls with the paints. And you have chemicals from all the painted items and all the different chemicals that are inside that room, just from different plastics and things like that are in there. You have the blue light toxicity, which is destroying their mitochondria. You have dirty electricity in the walls that was never grounded and never mitigated in any way. You have wireless electricity and wireless radiation coming from the different Wi-Fi routers. You have the electricity that's coming off the iPads and things like that, and the computers that are in that room, and then you have any sort of chemicals and toxins that are on the other kids, and then you have school lunches, which is now feeding those toxins into the children, and then you take the kids outside to go for recess, and now those kids at the very least are able to get some sunshine, some fresh air, but now those kids have to go out and play on this grass that is most likely sprayed with glyphosate, right? And then, God forbid, if a kid is sick or if a kid scrapes their knee during recess on this glyphosate-ridden grass, then they go to the school nurse and get more chemicals or get a flu vaccine or get a shot or all of these things. And then now in high schools, they're teaching children that it's okay to get these procedures done, to get things done to them, shots and things like that, without ever having told their parents. And so you combine all of that, just physical assault to their own health, with the content of what they're being taught, most of which is either not even necessary, untrue, or outright wrong. And so you get all this weird combination, and then you combine those two things with the content of what they're being taught and the assault to their physical health with other children who are now influencing them in weird ways. And so the more you look at the school system and start wondering why we're sending our kids to school, and if there's any other way, it would behoove us to figure out ways to mitigate that. So, oh yeah, what a show, huh? Good. Chris says, glad you're back. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Whiskey says, you wondered where we went. Yeah, we just took a little break, but now we're back 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. So it's really cool to be back. I love chit-chatting with you guys in the chat room. It's a lot of fun. Very true about your money part. Taco Bell is making a vegan and vegetarian menu in 2019. Cool. Cool, cool. It's interesting though, because it's not like Taco Bell or these companies. They actually care about what what your health. It's so interesting. But at the very least, it's good they're making changes, right? Meeting demand, because they'll sell you cardboard. If people bought cardboard, they'd sell you cardboard. They don't care. All they care about is making money. But if we understand how the game is played, then we can play the game, right? Buttercup Alvarado says vitamin C, biocell, collagen, nattokinase, serapeptase, tyrosine, alpha lipoic acid, CoQ10, oil of oregano. Cool. ZZ Captain says I'm 60 and can say the same. Good job, Buttercup. Wow. Buttercup says I'm 61 and not on any medications. You know what's interesting? Before I even got into Buttercup, this whole field of natural health and natural healing, before I got into this, I was probably, how old was I when I got in? 27, I think, back in 2003. Around early 20s, I told a nurse when I went to go see a doctor that, they asked me, okay, what medications are you on? Standing over me, expecting me to say 3 or 4 things to rattle down and put into a little list into my file. And I said, medications? And she said, yeah, which ones are you on? Not are you on any, but which ones are you on? And I said, no, I'm not on any medications. Why would I be on any medications, And she just looked at me like flabbergasted, like, really? You're not on any medications? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm 23 years old. Why would I be on any medications, right? Bizarre. We're so sick that we're teaching ourselves to become sick, and then we're teaching others to become sick, and then we're surprised when they're not sick. Bizarre, right? Pam says, I'm super Wi-Fi and EMF sensitive. I had to move to the mountains in my RV. Wow. Yeah, Pam, we had, like I said, Brian Hoyer on the show. He was on the show a while back, and he came, we paid him to come out to our home and test our home. He's got like $30,000 worth of equipment. He tested dirty electricity. He tested Wi-Fi. He tested geopathic stress. He tested everything. And if you go to our store, there's some mitigation products from him that we offer in our store, like the one to cut and reduce the amount of dirty electricity in your walls, in your whole house. So not just the green wave, which I recommend too. I just use all of them. And then he also has a a red light that you can shine on yourself when you're working at the computer that cuts all the electricity. So we did some testing, and on his meters you can see it spiking, and then he shines the light on me and puts the meter right in front of me, and all of those levels just completely went down. And this is a special grounded Faraday caged red light device that you can put on your desk while you're working. It emits a little bit of heat, so you get in the near infrared frequency there, and incredible. So there's tools out there, which is really great. Just seeing if there are any of you guys are chatting. Darren, use caps in your question. Oh, Chris was telling Darren to use caps in your question. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to see the question if you guys don't type it in all caps. Because when we're going through answering questions, it's much easier to see them in caps. Lime to Limitless is on. If you guys haven't followed him on Instagram, follow him. He puts out some cool stuff. Watch his videos almost daily. He's got some cool tips on Instagram. I think it's Kelowna Fitness on Instagram. Watch his stuff quite often. Really cool. Thanks for being here. All you guys are amazing. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad to be back too. How do you detoxify heavy metals? So heavy metals is something that we are accumulating in our bodies. So there's a lot of different cleanses that you can do. There's Dr. Andrew Cutler. He's got a tremendously controversial but yet extremely effective heavy metal cleanse detox protocol, and you can look him up, the Andy Cutler protocol, and he's got a whole book that we have that you can look at. I think you can get it on Amazon, and I think he recently passed away, which is such a bummer because we were going to get him on the show. We were going back and forth with him, and then something happened where I'm not sure exactly the story, but he's no longer with us, and we wanted to talk with him about his protocols for detoxifying heavy metals. There are cleanses that you can do, like the Ejuva cleanse. You can use that if you go to ejuva.com. I think they're in our store. I think so. We like their stuff a lot. We've had the owner of that company on the show when we first started back in 2012. But they have a heavy metal detoxification cleanse as well. How do I contact your store of those mitigating products? Yeah, Haji, if you go into the description of this box, of this YouTube video, there's a link to the different products in our store. So if you're looking for that particular Ejuva cleanse or that red light that you can put on your desk to mitigate flicker rate and EMF and stuff, that's available in our store. So you can see that. Diego says, I've tried water fasting for 1 week and feel better. Wow, water fasting. I have a hard time getting through a day of just fasting. I'm intermittent fasting right now. I do typically around 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then till about midday the next day. So about 16, 18 hours, maybe 12, anywhere from 12 to 16 hours. I do a little fast every day. Outlaw Light Easy. What is the process of booking people on your show? Love your work. Yeah, well, typically I'd say 95% of the people that we have on the show are people that we vet out and we seek out, because I listen to a ton of podcasts and I read a lot of books. I'm on YouTube a lot, and I am exposed to a lot of different people's work. And whenever I find someone that really is good, I'll put them in our little database, and eventually we get around to getting them on the show. Sometimes it takes a couple years to get people on. But send me an email, and I'll take a look at what you or the person you're talking about is doing. And if you guys have anybody that you want us to talk to, make sure to email them to me. What you might want to do, though, is look in our archives, because, like I said, this is 646 episodes we've done. So, yeah, we've most likely talked to them. We've done a lot of shows, but you know what I would recommend you guys do if you guys are in the chat room? This is really cool. Sign up to our iTunes account. If you are a listener of podcasts, we're releasing like 2 to 3 shows a week, and then those are new shows, and then we're doing archived, our best of content every day of the week. So every day you're going to get a new show into your feed if you guys are interested in that, and that way, if something interests you, you can always check it out. So, a lot of our shows we did in 2012, 2013 are incredibly relevant today, because health isn't something that's like newsworthy, right? It's relevant no matter when you listen to it. So a lot of that stuff is really beneficial. Some great shows we've done back in the day, and we re-feature those now on iTunes. So if you subscribe over there, leave us a rating and a review too. I'd really appreciate that. Let's see. Silica water may be something small to do. Yeah, guys, I'm really a fan of finding some things out that work with your schedule for improving your health. So there's this whole side of health. There's a couple different sides, right? So you want to make sure that you're preventing the onslaught of the environmental damage that is coming at you in living a default lifestyle, right? So mitigating all of the stuff that you can do at your home and workplace, right? But then there's things that you should and could do, put them part of your overall practice. Like for me, before we had kids 6 months ago, I was doing the sauna that we have in our store. I was doing that about 5 to 6 days a week on average. Now I'm lucky if I can get 3 days a week. But I do the red light therapy every single day. I'm going to get back into coffee enemas here pretty soon. Been feeling the need to do that, so I'll do that once a week. 2 days a week I'm working out. And then I'm walking. I'm doing the IMRS mat, our PEMF device, the red light therapy device. I'm rebounding every single day. So if I were you for 2019, something you might want to consider is just putting together a little protocol that you could do that works with your schedule, because we all have different schedules and all have different time constraints and things like that. So I would put together something that you can do. Like if you want to do a sauna, or if you want to get a workout going, or do some, training, some cardiovascular training, things like that. Put them into your schedule and make it happen. So 2019, you're doing things. One of the things I like to do is sort of mentally add up a lot of different things that I do. So for example, I like to think of things like this, like if I drink a green juice every single day, or a medicinal mushroom tea every single day for a year, that's 365 cups, right? So you figure a cup is 8 ounces. How many ounces is that? 365 times 8. And then you look at that. If you were to pour that into a big vat and see how much that is, and take a look at that physically right in front of you and see like, wow, all of this medicine has been going through my body. How incredible, right? Or if it were possible for me to wipe off all of the sweat that I sweat in our sauna over the past, let's see, when have I been using it? For about 7 years now. If I were to put that all into a bucket and look at all of the toxins and chemicals that live inside those fat cells in your body, and that sweat comes out of you, and look at that, it's kind of like a motivating thing, right? It's like when on TV you see people where they're like the Biggest Loser or something like that, and they show the person how many boxes of McDonald's hamburgers they've eaten over the past 10 years, and it shocks them, kind of thing. But do it in the reverse and think about all the things that you could do. Like if you rebound for 10 minutes a day, if you do 10 minutes times 365, that's 3,600 minutes. Divide that by 24 hours in a day. And over the course of a year, just by rebounding 10 minutes a day, you may have done that incredibly beneficial exercise for like 3 full 24-hour days in a full year. So think of it like that, and come together with a little plan for 2019, and think about how you can start improving yourself. Just little bits every single day really do add up. So, wow, Leandra said, I would love to know more about aloe vera. I've been taking Stockton Aloe 1 for 6 weeks, no more hot flashes. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, aloe vera is nature's original superfood. What's amazing about it, too, is that it has this stuff called, what is it called? It's an immune stimulator. Ace-mannan. So it's got something called ace-mannan in it. And that helps to produce interferon in the body, apparently. And these things, as well as interleukins, and these things have an effect on tumor necrosis factor A. So by alleviating the stress and improving your digestion, it's bringing down the viral load of your body. And it has these unique polysaccharide sugars, long-chain sugars that are incredibly beneficial for you. Obviously all of the enzymes, and the best thing to do would be to grow aloe vera yourself rather than taking Stockton Aloe 1. But it's again like if you can set up your life to, let's say you want to eat aloe vera every single day, if you can set up your life to where 80% of it is something that you grow yourself, and then you supplement with something like Stockton Aloe 1, or if you're busy and you have a career, you don't have much time, maybe you do 90% Stockton Aloe 1 and you get a little bit of fresh aloe on your own that you grow yourself. Same holds true with the Juve red light therapy. Like the Juve therapy device that we have in our store, it's not designed to replace the sun, but there are times in your life where you need light, and we're incredibly light deficient of the proper kinds of light, and that's what the Juve supplements. And so having these things there if you need them are really incredible. And so that's really cool, Leandra. I'm super happy about that. Aloe vera, Stockton Aloe 1. That's so cool. Diego says, I'm being drawn to a tropical environment. Every environment has its own issues, doesn't it? Tropical, you got parasites, you got things like that to deal with, but might be incredibly beneficial. You have higher quantum yield, as Dr. Jack Cruz talks about, higher lux from the sun. So your health is going to be improved by that. Haji says, I'm very pro-fasting, but I'm very wary of coffee enemas. Yeah, just do some research. You don't have to do coffee enemas. I think that a lot of these things, come to us because we are, inside of our bodies, we are needing to heal something that we don't know about, and we get drawn to certain things because of that. I really feel that's how it works. So let's say there's some invisible process that's going on inside your body that you need to heal. Maybe some inflammation or some gut health issue or some parasites that are going crazy. And you get drawn, for some weird reason, you get drawn to doing coffee enemas. You get drawn to doing MMS, or you get drawn to doing some oxygen treatment, or whatever the case may be, certain herbs. I feel like it's our body's intuitive way of communicating to us that this is the medicine that we're seeking. And that's why if you don't feel drawn to do a coffee enema, then definitely don't do it, for sure. Right now I feel drawn to do it. I was doing it pretty religiously for a few years back. I haven't done it for a few years, so it'll be good to get back into doing those. Angie says, you guys are talking about coffee enemas, flushes. My digestion is not great last couple of years, so I will try. The salt water wouldn't go down though. Yeah, if you heat up the water, I'm sure you did that a little bit too. Make sure the water is heated. And there's some specific things you can do to improve your ability to hold on to the coffee. I don't know if they work for parasites. I don't think they do. They basically stimulate your liver, and it's a liver cleansing protocol, and that's why they have all the people from Gerson and cancer therapies do that. So anyway, guys, I'm going to go home. If you guys follow us on Instagram, make sure to do that because I'll be posting what we do later on. But yeah, I'm going to take off now, and I hope you guys enjoyed that show. If you enjoyed it, please do me a favor and share it with your friends. That would be great. I would really appreciate that. That would be really tremendous for us. And subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes too. That would be really helpful. And then here on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. And I think there's like a little bell somewhere, right? That you can click on to be notified when we go live. So Wednesday and Friday we'll be live again. And yeah, I love you guys a lot. And if you haven't checked out, you guys are asking a lot of cool questions. And a lot of people, I've gotten some people that have been angry with me lately on Instagram because I wasn't responding to these people. And so I apologize for that. But as you can imagine, we get a lot of emails and a lot of questions and different platforms, and I can't get back to everybody. But what I do is, if you're a member of the Academy, that's why we designed the Academy. So we are doing some tremendously extraordinary things inside there right now, working on this incredible health database that will allow you to find and search everything you want. But in the forums and in the community section of the Academy, I get back to just about everybody there. So if you really want to get a hold of me and you want to improve your health as well, the Academy is really, really the place to go. So Maria says, it's nice to have you back. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Glad to be back. I'm curious where you guys are from. Where are you guys listening and watching from? I'm so curious. So curious about that. Maria, Angie, Diego, Julia. And I see a lot of you guys regulars. This is so cool. Mark. Whiskey, Diego, I said you already, Adinda, a lot of cool people. Thanks guys for being here. It's really, really cool. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. It should be available Visalia, California. No way. Cool. Seattle, Northeast, Santa Barbara. No way. That's awesome. You're just north of us. Yeah, so this should be available on the YouTube channel in just a few minutes. So I really appreciate you guys. I know there's a lot of different podcasts out there, a lot of different places you could be. And, Edinburgh, Scotland. Wow. Awesome. And so I just really value your time. I value your listenership and your patronage to our store. Texas. Wow. Cool. And just your support of our show. I really, really appreciate it. A lot of you guys go through our Amazon link and purchase from our store. So I really appreciate that a lot. And it keeps us going. Holland. Wow. This is amazing. And so I wish I could just give you all a big hug and say thank you. I really appreciate you guys a lot. So love you all. And we'll be back on Wednesday and Friday. Until then, enjoy some of the archives that we have in our feed on iTunes and check those out. We're doing new shows. I think the last show that we put on iTunes last night was, the one we did with Dr. Will Falconer, the natural pet care. Adinda, you're from Cairo, Egypt? No way. This is crazy. Wow, this is so cool. Yeah, so if you guys are subscribed on iTunes, the last show that we did last night was on natural pet care. So if you guys are dealing with any kind of issues with your dog, check that show out with Dr. Will Falconer. All right, guys, love you all. You're amazing. You are great. Thank you for being here. And I will catch you guys on the next episode on Wednesday. Love you and see you then.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse